Welcome back to the show, everybody. My name is Mark Farzyshow. This is the farzyshow presented by Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers. Welcome in, everyone, on the Farzyshow YouTube channel, as well as Jacob Media YouTube channel, and, of course, the people on the podcast. Joel Embiid is the MVP of the NBA. We'll talk all things Joel Embiid today. We'll see Joel Embiid's reaction in case you haven't seen or heard it. Also, Bryce Harper returned to the Phillies lineup for the first time in 160 days. Well, really since the World Series when you think about it. But a freak, ladies and gentlemen. An absolute freak. Comes back last night, unfortunately goes 0 for 4 in the ball game as the Phillies get demolished in Bryce Harper's return. But hey, at least it was nice to see that swing back in the Phillies lineup, that's for sure. Rob Thompson does something crazy with the lineup. We'll get into that. And Clay Harbor joins the show today. Hollis Thomas at the end of the show yesterday. Hollis Thomas will be on. I got my days confused. Hollis will join us tomorrow, meaning Wednesday. Yeah, that's how that will work. So Hollis will be joining us, should be Thursday. Hollis will be joining us Thursday. And then Clay Harbor is today's program, so he'll be joining us just a little bit later. But before we go any further, we got to just rattle this off immediately. In case you didn't see it, they made the announcement on TNT last night that Joel Embiid finally, after finishing second, as we all know, to Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets, Joel Embiid is the MVP of the NBA. Absolutely incredible. Feel so happy for him. Feel happy for the Sixers fan base that our guy finally gets legitimized in some people's eyes by winning that MVP award. Here it is, as it was read on national television last night with the entire Sixers team together at their hotel in Boston. Joel Embiid getting very emotional after finally being named the MVP of the NBA.
Tonight, 2023 MVP from the Philadelphia 76ers.
I know we talk a lot about Joel Embiid and what an entertaining personality he is. I know we talk about, the player that he is, quite frankly. But what we don't talk about enough is how hard this guy has worked. I mean, let's think about this for a second. We've all seen the pictures of Skinny JoJo in Cameroon just picking up a basketball for the first time. We've all seen, we saw him at Kansas, certainly, and he was still Skinny JoJo. And I remember him being drafted by the Sixers, and yeah, most likely a delay in the draft pick and the announcement actually making his house that he was going to be joining the 76ers. I'll never forget it. I was sitting in the newsroom at WIP, and I was covering the NBA draft, and I was waiting to see who the Sixers were going to take and all that. And we had Andrew Wiggins, of course, and all that stuff that was going on. And I remember sitting there, and I saw Joel Embiid, the Sixers select Joel Hans Embiid, Kansas. And he just, that face, right? No reaction. It's like, okay, somebody's really excited to join the process. And then, of course, they got the actual reaction of him, and he was all excited. He was all pumped, and he was ready to go. That's how it started. MVP of the NBA is how it is going for Joel Embiid. And you think about that guy and the guy that put on weight. You think about the guy that, and I'm talking about put on weight in a good way, muscle. Although in the first couple of years of his career when he wasn't healthy and he was obviously going through a lot emotionally, this was a guy that needed to put it all together. And he has absolutely put it all together. And when you think about the idea of not picking up a basketball till he was, 16 years old, and then actually going out there and putting together MVP caliber seasons and then finally winning that award and watching him grow and watching him get better and better and better and watching his footwork on the defensive end of the court. The offensive end of the court, it seemed like it was always great. And then on the defense end of the court, he needed to make sure that he could just have proper footwork, how he positioned his hands defensively, the overall scoring, obviously. Seeing him improve from what we saw in year one to now, and for the vast majority of that, see a guy like Ben Simmons not improve. I felt like we spent so much time talking about Ben Simmons not improving. We didn't highlight the idea of how much Joel Embiid had been improving and how much his hard work had been paying off. Instead, we were talking about Shirley Temples and conditioning, and a lot of that is valid and absolutely warranted the conversation. But at the same time, to talk about how hard he has worked over the last 3 years, especially over the last 3 years where you've really seen the fruits of his labor out there on the court, I feel like that work ethic needs to be highlighted finally now that we are at the pinnacle to this point of Joel Hans Embiid's career. Look, I know there's people out there that will say it doesn't mean anything and who cares, it doesn't matter. Bull. It absolutely matters because of all the things I just laid out. It matters because it shows just how much this guy improved from not picking up a basketball till he was 16 years old to now being the most valuable player in the association. And we hope, we absolutely long for the idea that he comes back in this series and he helps the Sixers get past this second round playoff series with the Boston Celtics. And not only will the Sixers have their first MVP since Allen Iverson in 2001, but that the 76ers will make it past the second round of the playoffs since Allen Iverson in 2001. And that's what we're hoping for. Let's get over that threshold and let's just see how far this can go. Because not just the East, but the NBA is wide open when it comes to who the next champion could be. And if Joel Embiid is healthy, if James Harden is healthy and playing the way he played in game one of that series against the Celtics, and Tyrese Maxey's helping you out, and Tobias Harris is doing his thing, and PJ Tucker is being playoff PJ, then all will be right with the world. But I watched that last night, and I had this sense of thinking of the kid we saw in that really crappy penny or jersey or whatever at basketball camp in Cameroon, and then seeing him get all emotional in the Sixers hotel conference room, it looked like, up in Boston. I felt fantastic for him. And for the people that say it doesn't matter, that's just absolutely, it couldn't be further from the truth. It's not the ultimate for us as a fan base. It's not the ultimate for the franchise, of course. And winning a championship is the ultimate. But to say it doesn't matter, I just don't see that. I know we're not throwing a parade for ourselves because Joel Embiid's the MVP. But, man, I know that when I look back on that 2001 Eastern Conference championship run and that finals run of at least making it to the finals, I do think about how special it was that Allen Iverson was the MVP of that season. And for me, I think that is just a lot of fond memories looking back on AI's year. And then for the last 3 years here in Philadelphia, looking over what Joel Embiid has done over the last 3 years and looking at what he has done, especially this year, now that he finally has that hardware, I feel euphoric for him. And I feel great that we at least got to legitimately say without dispute, we watched the MVP of the NBA in Joel Embiid. So congratulations to him. And how about this? The motivation. And I remember this. I remember this interview that he references here. So Shaq is congratulating him on TNT, NBA on TNT, and all the Sixers are around him. It's that same scene. And Joel Embiid is saying to Shaquille O'Neal, or Shaquille O'Neal says to Embiid, you know, we've been on you. I know me and Chuck have been riding you. We've been hard on you. And they absolutely have. And I remember this game that they're referencing because after the game, I think the Sixers actually had just won. And Joel Embiid's on headset with Chuck and Shaq. And they're talking to him about how, like, hey, you need to be better. You need to play better. And he's like, what the hell, man? We just won. Things were cool. And Joel Embiid is going back and forth right now with Shaq, last night, I should say. And it's the same thing. He says, yeah, I recall that conversation. And when you talk about motivation and you wanting me to be great, I remember taking a lot of that stuff personally as well. Here is Joel Embiid with Shaq.
Thank you, big fella. Appreciate it. I still remember the conversation we had a couple of years ago. I think it was 3-4 years ago. It was actually here in Boston. We had just played Boston, and you guys were all on me about, I got to be dominant. And, to this day, I still remember that conversation. And, that helped a lot, and that changed a lot when it came to the way, I went about my business. So thank you.
A lot of players, and I had a big issue with this with the Eagles in 2017 when they won the Super Bowl and all that. A lot of people say, well, we don't hear the outside noise. Yeah, okay, sure you don't. I mean, for Joel Embiid, you could say, he could easily say, like, obviously he heard it, but whether or not he would give Chuck or Shaq the satisfaction that they had a lot to do with him reaching his full potential as an athlete. Some players wouldn't do that. I don't need that motivation, right? Him admitting it, I think, is pretty big, because how could you not listen to Hall of Famers or a champion in, of course, Shaquille O'Neal's case, a guy that played with Kobe? How could that not affect you? If anyone you respect who has done your job is highly criticizing you at your job, how do you not listen to that? How do you not pay attention to that and use that as a critique or use that as motivation to be better at your job? And Joel Embiid absolutely did that. And seeing him add fadeaways to his game, seeing him get better as a shooter, seeing him play in the post more, seeing him play at the top of the key more, at the foul line, really, and see him take advantage of that mid-range game and then being able to attack the rim. That's something that we have seen him progress at during his career. And you just think about that. And while we were focusing, I can't think about it enough, and I can't say it enough, while we were focusing on the lack of improvement in Ben Simmons' game, I wish we were focusing more on Joel Embiid's improvement, because we almost took that for granted when he was next to Ben Simmons. So it was like, yeah, well, we know Joe's going to be great, but it's just a Ben Simmons. And yeah, that's when we look back on this season. Hopefully, of course, it's fonder memories than just winning an MVP award. But for me, I'll think about the hard work that went into this for Joel Embiid, and really everyone in Sixers Nation looking at Joel Embiid and watching the maturation process and how incredible it really was. Absolutely incredible. Couldn't be happier for him. Couldn't be happier for the Sixers. And then tonight, hopefully we're even happier with the Sixers taking game 2 of the second round playoff series with the Boston Celtics. Why not take both games up there in Beantown before coming back to South Philadelphia? Have yourselves a good time. So great to see that for Joel Embiid. 73 of the 100 votes. He got 73 first place votes out of the possible 100. Not too shabby for the Sixers big man. Absolutely incredible. We'll get more on that a little bit later in the show. As I mentioned, Clay Harper will be joining us a little bit later on, talking about the Eagles draft, how impressed he is with Howie Roseman. And one thing I wanted to get into with Clay Harper was how, as a player, you follow the NFL draft. Because, of course, if you're a tight end like Clay Harper and the Eagles are drafting another tight end, like they did, actually, how are you watching that? How are you rooting for it? Are you hoping that you get somebody that you don't have to compete with? If you're a guy that's a veteran, are you saying, oh, well, it's no problem because I'm pretty locked into my position and I know I'm pretty good, so they'll get somebody else, whatever. How are you following it? How are you talking about it amongst the players? And his perspective is even more unique, not just as a player there, but also having played for the Eagles, keeping a foothold in the Eagles media base, and also now covering the Chicago Bears for various outlets in Chicago. I was curious to see his perspective when he saw that the Chicago Bears were making a trade away from the 9th pick with the Philadelphia Eagles. What goes through an opposing fan base's mind when they see Howie Roseman has just made a trade with you to take whoever, in this case, Jalen Carter? What was it like for Chicago to sit back and see Howie wave his magic wand and move into your spot to eventually take Jalen Carter in that 9 spot? So we'll get his perspective on that coming up in a second. So if you're watching or listening to me now live, 6:20 in the morning, probably you didn't stay up and watch that Phillies game last night, and God bless you. You made a better decision. I did stay up and watch that Phillies game last night, and I did the Jacob Media Phillies post-game show, and there was not a lot to talk about in terms of good things. I mean, Bryce Harper came back, which was cool, and Bryce Harper felt great, felt fine afterwards, right? He was in the clubhouse afterwards, and he felt fine. We'll let you hear from him in a second. But as far as this baseball game went, the Phillies had one hit by Trey Turner. It was a home run, and that's about it. There's not much more I can say about last night's game. Phillies dropped to a game under 500 as they completely get dominated. They had one hit off Urias. They got another hit off the bullpen later in the game. That one came off the bat of Eddie Sosa. I want to say it was in that 8th inning. But it was a pretty awful performance by the Phillies. They got one hit for the 7 innings that Urias was out there, and they just could not find a way to even make contact with Urias's cutter. He had 10 strikeouts last night. I'm not sure how many were on cut fastballs, but good God, it seemed like every punch out, every flailing at a pitch was the cutter low and away, and guys were just left golfing at it. It was after a while, I was just it was one of those situations again where it's I'm not even mad, I'm impressed, because it was just a simply dominant performance by Reyes. And he had allowed, I believe it was 11 runs over his last 2 starts, and they were both on the road. One was to Pittsburgh, one was to the Cubs, and he comes back to Los Angeles and just dominated the Phillies like those 2 awful starts never happened. Trey Turner got a home run in the 4th inning. It was the first hit of the ball game for the Phils. And as the game went on, it was just unbelievable guessing match after unbelievable guessing match for the Phillies. For the second straight game, Phillies get blown out. For the second straight game, Cody Clemens has to be your final pitcher on the mound. He has to close out the game for you so you don't burn another bullpen arm. It was bad. Gregory Soto, who has been fantastic, was terrible last night in his outing. It was just an abysmal performance by the Phillies all around. As far as the box score went, in this case, I always like to say numbers don't lie, but they can deceive. In this instance, the numbers don't do either. They tell you exactly what happened in last night's game. Strom got hit around. 6 hits, 4 earned runs, 5 strikeouts. Brogdon did fine. Scoreless inning and 2/3 out there. Dominguez, good. You thought the bullpen was doing what the bullpen had been doing when they came on in relief in that 4th inning with Brogdon and Dominguez. And then Gregory Soto got beat up. Only records 2 outs in his appearance. Gets charged for 4 runs on 4 hits. Only struck out 1. Did issue a walk. Marte comes on in relief after Soto. 4 runs, all earned, 2 hits, 2 walks. There was one instance with Marte where he goes up 0-2. He goes up 0-2 on, I want to say it was Bush. And then he does not locate, forget about locate, doesn't even throw a fastball. Even the 3-2 count, doesn't throw the fastball, walks him, loses him. What the hell, man? So that was even hard to imagine how the hell that happened. Cody Clemens got the last out the Phillies needed, but not before surrendering 3 hits. He only got charged for 1 run, but those other runs were charged to Marte. As far as the bullpen went for the Dodgers, Vesia was out there. He allowed just 1 hit and a walk. They didn't get any runs across on him. Bickford, obviously, he came in 3 strikeouts, no problem for him. And it was a 13-1 Phillies loss in Los Angeles. Bryce Harper was out there. He struck out 3 times. He was 0 for 4. That violent swing that he has, we talk about this a lot, and we've talked about it a lot with Joel Embiid about when he hits the floor, if you're concerned every time he hits the floor, and I'm not during the regular season, but during the playoffs, oh, yeah, I worry. I have concern. And why? Well, because he missed game 4 against the Nets, and he missed game 1 against the Celtics. So, yes, I have concern in the playoffs when I see Joel Embiid either hit the floor or grab his knee or start hobbling, or they say, oh, Joel Embiid's going up the tunnel. He's going back to the locker room. Yes, I have concern. When I see Bryce Harper fresh off of Tommy John surgery 160 days ago, and he's back faster than anyone in the history of anything, and he is doing that violent whip of a swing, 2 hands violently through the strike zone, I do go, especially when it's a outside pitch that he is, again, use the term, flailing at. It's a bit of a concern. He got through it easy last night as far as pain went, as far as how he felt went. He said after the game he did feel good. It's just a matter of pitch recognition and timing. And that's what he said after the game. Here's your boy Bryce Harper after making his 2023 season debut. And after suiting up after having surgery in November, he's back. Here he is after the game.
Not the game we wanted to have, right? So just got to keep going, keep plugging along. I just feel like it's pitch selection, and it'll even things out. It'll get better. Just gotta get this done some time.
You felt a bunch of pitches off. Take that as a positive. I mean, the fact that maybe the timing is not that far off.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like my time is pretty good. It's just it's pitch selection for him right now. I had some pretty good pitches to hit in that second at bat, I would say, and then that last at bat as well. Pickford gave me 2 sliders, or gave me a slider in the year. I should have better swings on, but it is what it is, and we'll flush that today, get back tomorrow, and like I said, my swing feels good. I don't want to change anything or anything like that. I feel good, so just gotta get going and understand it's going to take me a minute.
Not expecting all of a sudden for Bryce Harper to go back into like MVP form. I know this is going to be, to use this overused word, process. This is going to be a process for Bryce Harper to get back into form, to get hopefully to even an all-star level, and all that's going to take a while. The one thing that does scary about being in uncharted territory of a guy coming back 160 days after the Tommy John surgery is that everything could look great. Everything could look fantastic. And hearing the Bryce Harper talk about it 2 nights ago and watching him last night and hearing Tom McCarthy talk about it and Ben Davis talk about it, about how everyone that worked with Bryce Harper, from trainers to doctors to Bryce Harper himself just being dedicated to coaches, Bryce Harper just being so dedicated to the cause of him coming back early and healthy and ready to go. As great as that is, you still just never know. And I'm going to be a worrywart about this until we see Bryce Harper have a great stretch that we've seen Bryce Harper have, where he seems to carry this team for like weeks at a time. And then I want to see how he responds to that, how his body responds to that. And then only after that will I feel great about the rest of the season for Bryce Harper. I still can't believe that I thought I was the most optimistic person on the planet by saying he'd be back by the end of May. And this was back in spring training. And then here we are. It was May 2nd yesterday, and he was playing in the ball game. Just what the hell? God bless that man. So Phillies are back at it tonight for Game 3, the final game of this 3-game series in Los Angeles. 4:10 start time. Aaron Nola will be on the hill. Nola looking to really continue what he's been doing over his last couple of starts. Looking really good. Also looking good against went 8 innings against the Houston Astros, by far his most dominant performance of the season. He has looked fantastic. He looked fantastic in that game. He lowered his ERA back below 5, which was great. But now in 3 consecutive starts for Aaron Nola, he's allowed no more than 3 runs in those 3 starts. So that's a great thing. That might be him settling in, and hopefully he'll do the same thing tonight against the Dodgers. As for the Dodgers, I believe we have a big league debut out there on the mound for the Dodgers. Getting the start for them, Gavin Stone. 24-year-old righty will get the start for the Dodgers against Aaron Nola. Nola dominates again tonight. All the Nola lovers will be loud and proud, and all the Nola haters will again be silent. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say it at all. Unfortunately for them, they have a lot of nice things to say, but they just won't say them. They just won't say them. Let me tell you about Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers, the other corner of 8th and Walnut, right there on Jewelers Row. For over 40 years, Steven Singer's been in the love business in Philadelphia, helping people get engaged and fall in love. Steven Singer Jewelers has the perfect price each and every day online at IHateStevenSinger.com. That's IHateStevenSinger.com. Let me tell you right now about the great people of Manscaped. Go to Manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping when you use promo code Farzy at Manscaped.com. They have the best hygiene bundle yet right now with their Platinum Package 4.0. It includes their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer as well as their Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer. And they come with skin-safe technology that helps you reduce the risk of nicks so you can manscape with confidence and comfort. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give it a shot. Manscaped. Join 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and their skin-safe technology that helps you manscape with confidence and comfort. How about PHL Sports Nation, Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience across all social media and blogs? That's PHLSportsNation.com. How about Freestone Farm CBD? You like CBD? You use CBD? You want to try a different CBD? How about Freestone Farm CBD at FreestoneFarmCBD.com? You'll love the tropical tasting Bayox that clocks in at a chart-topping 24.1%, and Super CBD, which is half Hindu, Kush, and 21%. Genetics of these guys are off the charts, and they grow all their premium hemp flower in the Garden State. So try Freestone Farm CBD at FreestoneFarmCBD.com. We're going to hit the chat check first tonight, or today, I should say, ladies and gentlemen, and then we'll get to our friend Clay Harbor coming up in just a second, but I want to see what the good people have been saying about Joel Embiid and everybody else. Let's start it off on Farzy Show. Sean Kilrain, good morning. Terrence Hill, what? One word, MVP. Go Sixers. Morning, Farzy. Hello, Go Sixers. I wonder what's on your mind today. Mally, are we getting Disco Tank appearance on Thursday? On Thursday, we'll get Disco Tank. Tomorrow, Hemescusi. I have no idea what day of the week it is. Thanks, Phillies, for the 10-10 start times. Are you guys with me? The 10-10 start time shouldn't even count for East Coast teams. Just saying is all. Mally, hello. Mike Fuji. What's up, Mike Fuji? Mark, good peeps. Game 2, play the song. Let's hope so. Sean Gillespie, what's going on? April. Good morning, April. Fuji, hello. Doing good. Oh, everyone's saying hello. This is nice. Armando Fontanez. What's going on? Great name. The best center in the NBA. Nobody can guard him. I concur. Sean Kilrain, this is awesome. That two great basketball minds giving him his due. Tough love. Now, Philly win a championship. Play the song. Yeah. That's hopefully the next step. Thanks to everybody in the chat of the Farzy Show channel. Sammy Khan. Excuse me, Sean. John, you told me yesterday. Sorry. Exactly. Ben Simmons and this is on Jacob Media's YouTube channel. Ben Simmons got into Shaq's DMs and cried about getting called out. Embiid took the criticism from champs to heart and decided to keep working. See, here's the thing that really bothered me. All right. Here's the thing that really bothered me. When everything was going on with Ben Simmons in his waning moments in the 76er. And Joel Embiid put out the tweet about how we all need to be better. Sixers fans need to be better. Remember that? About like supporting Ben? It was actually like a supportive tweet to Ben. And he ended it with Philly fans need to be better, something along those lines. I took such an exception to that because as a Joel Embiid lover, which I am, I think every Sixers fan should be. It was like, hold on a second. we criticized Joel Embiid, and he, in the tweet, I think he also referenced his own struggles. And I'm like, hold on a second. We criticized Embiid. Embiid criticized Embiid. So we were all on the same page. We voiced our frustration with Joel Embiid at times. Like, for instance, not being in shape was a real thing. Eating cheeseburgers before games was a real thing. All right. The Shirley Temples thing was a real thing. All right. So we wanted him to be the best he could possibly be. And what is he right now? The best he could possibly be. Now, I'm not saying it was Sixers fans only that got in his head, but I'm sure being either booed or the criticism on social media, I'm sure that got to him. But what got to him above all else was most likely guys like Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley giving him, Sammy, as you point out, the tough love. So we give the same kind of tough love to a guy like Ben Simmons. There's no excuse for the pass to Thibault. No excuse whatsoever for that. So we call out that criticism. We give the tough love, all right? And we got criticized for it when we did the same thing with Joel Embiid and he's only gotten better. With Ben Simmons, he didn't respond to that. So that's a great point. Duck, what's up, Duck? Dodgers pitching staff is something. Yeah, they are certainly something. Aren't they? Yeah. Absolutely terrible. Thanks everybody in the chat. You guys are great as per usual. I am still very much looking at this NFL draft, and I needed to get the perspective of somebody, and I felt like we all needed to get the perspective of somebody who has both worked with Howie and now covers what Howie could do to his team. So I reached out to our friend Clay Harper, who's been on the show a bunch of times, and he was actually on the air in Chicago on NBC Sports Chicago while they were doing draft coverage. And he sees that the Eagles have traded up with the Bears to take that 9th overall pick. Jalen Carter is still on the board. And as many people have said now, if he's not the best player on the draft board, he's maybe at worst the second, like him and Will Anderson Jr. So he's right there for the taking. What are the Bears going to do? The Bears decide to make that trade. When other GMs see that 215 area code come up on their phone, or they see it's Howie, does it come up as Howie Roseman, or does it come up like thief? Philly thief? Is that the ID? People have Howie Roseman's phone in or number in their phones. Do you worry as someone who's covering the Bears? Do you worry as a Chicago Bears fan that you're about to get fleeced? We know that there's reports out there right now, or a report out there right now, that a lot of GMs around the league are a little jealous of Howie Roseman, potentially. Jealous of Howie? Here's my suggestion. Go win. Go beat him. Go win a Super Bowl. Go make 2 Super Bowls in 5 years with a different quarterback and a different head coach. Blah, 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 blah. You know, try to do that. So I wanted to get that perspective on Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles and the way they do business, especially for a guy like Clay Harper, who was here when Howie wasn't the majestic Howie that we saw now. And when Clay was experiencing the Philadelphia atmosphere, he experienced Andy Reid, he experienced Chip Kelly, and then he experienced seeing his replacement get drafted and signed. Whether it's Zach Ertz or who is it? James Casey, I believe, was the other guy that he mentions in this interview. So without further ado, this is going to be the end of the live show. We're going to go to our interview here with Clay Harper, and we'll talk all things Eagles and the NFL draft, as well as what we can expect for the upcoming season with the Eagles and their defense, with the options they're going to have at defense on the defensive line. With the success of this draft. So thanks, everybody. I'm going to thank you guys live now for joining the show. Much appreciated here on the Jacob Media YouTube channel, as well as Farzy Show YouTube channel. Jim Hyden produced the program, did a wonderful job as per usual. Here is our conversation with former Eagles tight end and now current media member, good friend of the show, Mr. Clay Harper. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show on the Rothman Orthopedics guest line. A good friend of the program, an old friend of mine, a former Philadelphia Eagle, Jaguar, even made Tom Brady look good occasionally there in training camp in New England. Jacksonville Jaguars, Chicago Bears. His name's Clay Harper. You know him from reality television and everything else. The man is in school right now. The man is getting his degree, further education. And right now, Clay, you're on did you just sign up with the 33rd team? The Mike Tenenbaum platform? That's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I am officially a member of the 33rd team. So I do daily, weekly hits with the 33rd team. I talk Bears, I talk Jaguars typically on the 33rd team. And that's been great, man. Mike Tannenbaum has done a great job of putting an amazing team together with the 33rd team. Their website's great with just NFL content from coaches, GMs, and players, the guys that have played and coached the games. And they make our job really easy. They'll set us up with great questions. They do all the editing. They do everything. They got us set up with exactly what they want to talk about and lead us into the questions. And then they turn it out really quickly, man. It's been a lot of fun. And they've done a great job with everything there. Mike Tannenbaum's crushed that.
We had Mike Tannenbaum on the show maybe a year and a half ago or so and just talked about it. And it was the first I was really exposed to the 33rd team. And it just seemed like such a great idea for people that were in the game to talk about the game, to write about the game, to cover the game, and just hear their perspective is fantastic. So make sure you guys check out all things in the 33rd team, especially anything related with Clay Harbor right here. Clay, you also were doing some coverage. You're a busy man for NBC Sports Chicago. I have to ask you, when it comes to the draft, before we jump into the specifics of Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and all this stuff, I got to know, what's the vibe around the set at this time? What's the vibe you think around the NFL when you see your team making a trade with Howie Roseman? Because I have to assume that if my team is trading with Howie, I'm not going to win this deal. So Chicago makes a trade with Howie Roseman. They get Jalen Carter there. But when you saw that the Eagles had made a trade with the Bears, what were you thinking?
Well, that was an interesting trade because, I was on air right when it happened. We were going live on NBC from for the draft, and we're just talking about the picks. Each pick comes in, and we're just sitting there. Okay, maybe Carter falls. Like, he's going to fall. Carter's going to fall. And then the Bears are on the clock, and we're like, do they take Carter? Do we go O-line? Do we trade back? And then it comes, the Bears are trading with the Eagles. I go, oh, my goodness. I go, they're not taking Carter. But why are they trading with the Eagles? And then it comes up that it's a fourth-round pick. And then my thought is, obviously, they're not trading the pick for just a fourth-rounder. So comes out that there was someone else in the background that was maybe considering jumping the Eagles, but the Bears didn't want to go back too much because they're afraid Darnell Wright wouldn't have been there. So then from the Bears' perspective, what fans are saying out here is it's a great deal because you were drafting Darnell Wright anyways, and you got a fourth rounder from nothing. But, obviously I look at the Eagles side too. And from that perspective, a fourth rounder for next year to move up and get Jalen Carter, who's arguably the best player in this entire draft. I mean, that's a steal. But from the Bears' perspective, they weren't drafting him anyways, and you got a fourth round pick. So this time I actually think it was semi-fair. I mean, the Eagles definitely got Jalen Carter for not a lot, but the Bears weren't going to take him. So they got a fourth rounder next year for nothing. I thought maybe they could have traded back to maybe around 15 to 20 and still got Darnell Wright. But, getting that fourth rounder next year as a fourth rounder myself, I know you can, find value there. I know it's probably about a 25% hit rate as far as if the guy is going to be, live out his first year contract or not.
Gotcha. I do have to ask, because you have such a unique perspective, knowing the Philadelphia market and working outside the market. What is the reputation of Howie Roseman? Is it as rosy as we think it is for us here in Eagle Land? Do other fan bases just not want their general managers to answer the phone when they see that 215 area code?
Yeah, don't answer the phone when Howie's calling. I don't know why these guys keep doing business with Howie. Honestly, this guy's done a phenomenal job, and he just keeps getting better. He keeps getting it done. I don't know how he got some of these players on the board. Some of my favorite players in the entire draft, and he got more than one of them. So, I mean, his reputation in other cities is just as good in Philly. People do look at him as a guy that will go the extra mile to trade picks to get his team in the right position. He's not a guy that wants to just sit back and let things fall to him. He's a go-getter, and that's what a lot of teams want in their GMs.
Certainly. So let's delve into the specifics here. The Eagles do get at 9, courtesy of the Bears there in that fourth round pick. The Eagles at 9 get Jalen Carter. I was amazed. It's the guy that I thought would be the most exciting and the most plausible to get with, as I was referring to it, with that 10th pick asset, meaning they can move up a little bit, back a little bit, most likely up for a guy like Jalen Carter. So they get him. what was your reaction to the Eagles getting Jalen Carter, and how good and how high do you think his ceiling is?
It was a little bit of an up and down for me because I wanted the Bears to take Jalen Carter as a Bears guy covering the Bears. When the Eagles got him, I'm like, yes. I'm like, wait a second, what? I just wanted the Bears. Now I'm like, yes. Like I don't know what to do. But overall, I thought it was a great pick for the Eagles. Carter can play. I think he's an unbelievable talent. Just watching him on film, he's a guy that can line up at the 3 technique. He can line up as a nose guard. He can line up as a 5 technique. That's inside shade of the tight end. And he can line up as a 6 technique, which is directly over the tight end, or a 9. You can put him on pass rush situations. You can put him anywhere along the defensive front, and he's going to be able to get the job done. I'm sure they're going to have some packages with him outside, with him inside. And he's got so much versatility on that defensive line. And I think it's a perfect spot for Jalen Carter just because – BG's old. BG was drafted my draft class. That guy can mentor. The perfect guy to mentor Jalen Carter, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, the guys I used to play with. They're so smart. They've been through it. They've seen guys, talented guys. All he has to do now is look at these 2 guys, do what they do, and that's how you have this longevity and you have a career like them. And then outside of that, you got Jordan Davis and Kobe Dean there, 2 guys that he knows, went to school with, his friends that can come in there. So overall, I think this is an incredible landing spot for him. He's not even going to be able to be asked to do that much this year because they do got so many players there like Jordan Davis.
Mm-hmm. What do you make of the whole Bulldog connection? We'll get to Nolan Smith in a second there, but when it comes to the Georgia connection, how much does that really help a guy like Sean Desai and knowing that his players know each other so well already?
Well, they've been successful on the field together already. Half of it is already done. You want to know, okay, how are these players going to mix? You got Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter on the same line. Like, do they know how to play next to? They already have. They've won a national title. You don't even have to guess anymore. Sometimes when you're putting these pieces together, in basketball, you can get an all-star team, but if these guys don't know how to play together, it's the same in football. People don't realize that. Can you play together? These guys have played together. And Kobe Dean has played behind Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter before. Okay, so you already know that they have this chemistry and they know how to play off each other. So I think that's huge, and that's just going to work in the Eagles' favor.
We hear a lot about Nolan Smith, the undersized thing. People have compared him to Hassan Reddick. Well, Hassan Reddick's got 39.5 sacks in 3 years, so Hassan Reddick has worked out well for him. What can we expect from Nolan Smith? What do you think a ceiling is for a guy like him?
I think his ceiling is Hassan Reddick. I think he's a guy that can do the same type of things. And I don't want to, say that, but if you look at a comp, you got a perfect comp for you right there in the room with you every day to see, because you can't do the things that Josh Sweat can do. You can't do the things that BG can do, but you can do the things that Hassan Reddick can do because you're just as athletic. You're the same size as him. And I know you hear maybe he's not great against the run. He was a top 5 Pro Football Focus. I think he might have been number 1 against the run, great against the run last season in the SEC. And I know he's recovering from his pec injury, but everything seems to be healed up and he's ready to go. But this guy, 41-inch vertical, 11-foot broad jump, 4.394. These are insane numbers, Mark. I don't care who you are. This kid is going to, just off of pure athleticism, is going to be able to do some crazy things that we haven't seen, in the NFL in a while. When's the last time you saw a defensive end running a 4.3?
All right. Yeah,
exactly.
I don't think, not to my recent memory.
Yeah. It's an incredible pick. And then also, if you go to Keely Ringo, this guy can fly. I don't know how he was there in the 4th round. This guy was a state champion in Arizona. He won the 100 and 200 and was ranked in the top 10 nationally. He can fly. He started all 12 games with Georgia, led them in interceptions and pass breakups. This is another steal from Howie. He's a guy that most people had on top 50 to top 100 on their draft board. So Howie just keeps getting it done, and the Philadelphia Bulldogs are looking good this year.
You know what? Person in my chat, I got to ask you again to step forward. Somebody in my chat said and I think this is the second time I'm forgetting who it was. They said the Broad Street Bulldogs, and I thought that was poetry. I thought that was brilliant. We haven't talked since Sean Desai got the job here in Philadelphia. Covering Chicago, knowing Chicago, he was there in Chicago. How do you think he deploys the guys that he now has, especially all these Georgia Bulldogs and the veterans of Brandon Graham and Hassan Reddick and Fletcher Cox? What do you think we see when it comes to Sean Desai, now the Philadelphia Eagles defensive coordinator?
I think he's got a problem, but it's a problem a lot of defensive coordinators would like to have.
Okay.
Because you got a plethora of guys, and I think you go at it like you start on, early in the season, you're heavy on BG and Fletch, and you let those Josh Sweat, you let those guys kind of, take off early, and you bring these rookies along slowly. Why wouldn't you? You can do that. BG and Fletch and Josh Sweat, these guys can still get the job done. Then you bring up these rookies, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, you bring them in, you let them kind of get their feel for it. And obviously Jordan Davis is a guy that didn't get a lot of snaps last year, but he's a guy that can play. You got a lot of options here, man. You got to have some personnel groupings where you got Hassan Reddick on the field with BG and Nolan Smith at times, and then Jalen Carter. You can do a lot. You come up with the groupings on pass rush downs, run stopping downs, specific plays. When you want to get specific things out of these guys, you put them in the positions to play to the best of their ability. And then I think, Sidney Brown is a guy that's one of my favorite picks of the draft too. For the Eagles, so many good picks here. Obviously, you got Marcus Epps and C.J. Gardner-Johnson leaving, but I think he can compete with Blankenship and Edmonds for a starting job. I don't think those jobs are safe. I think in training camp, if he comes in and has an excellent training camp, he had 6 interceptions last year, which was tied for 3rd in the FBS. This guy was first team All Big Ten. I went to the Senior Bowl. I don't know. I thought the guy was playing really well. He covered better than I thought he would. He's in the box safety. I think Sidney Brown's another guy that could play and turn into a really big steal for the Eagles there as well.
Mm-hmm. I got to ask you about this as well. This is another incredible trade on the draft. Saturday, it all pops up on our phones. It's out there from Adam Schefter that the Philadelphia Eagles have acquired DeAndre Swift from the Detroit Lions, and now he'll be in the backfield with Kenny Gainwell, Rashad Penny, and also Boston Scott. People were telling me, our friend John McMullen at Jacob Media was telling me that the Eagles' leading rusher is not on the roster yet. This was a month ago. Then they go ahead and they make this trade for, most people were hoping it was Bijan Robinson. Man, did you get great value? Didn't trade away much. 4th round pick. You can get DeAndre Swift here with the Philadelphia Eagles now in a 7th round pick swap. Go figure. What kind of impact do you think Swift will have here in Philadelphia? Do you think he will be the number 1 ball carrier in Philly?
Yeah, as a guy, covering, the Bears, I got to see a lot of Swift with the Lions, these past couple of years. And the guy can play when he's healthy. He has injury concerns. He's missed a lot of games, but you just look at that home opener against the Eagles last year. He ran the ball down, obviously, as early in the year, at 144 yards. He was just running wild, and that's probably something that how we saw. Bill Belichick's famous for that. When he studies guys have good games against Bill Belichick. Somehow they end up on the Patriots, but he averaged 5.5 yards per carry last year, up there with Penny. Rashawn Penny averaged the same. I think that these two guys, if they can stay healthy, can honestly be one of the best running back duos in football. And obviously Penny, the problem is with Penny, he's missed as many games as he's played, right? But if these two guys can stay healthy, I don't think healthy that there's many running back rooms that can say they have players that can play like them. And obviously it's hard to forecast if a guy is going to stay healthy or not. And that's a position that takes, a lot of hits. It's a tough spot. I'm glad I'm not wasn't a running back. I had to do a little bit of fullback in my day, and that wasn't fun. But if these guys stay healthy, I think Swift and Penny split the load. And obviously, you still got Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell, but these two guys are playmakers. 35th pick in the 2020 draft for a 4th rounder. Come on.
Not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. The last thing I want to ask you about here is the news that broke last week about Jalen Hurts and his contract. It's absolutely off the charts. Lamar Jackson, of course, just comes along like 20 minutes later and signs a bigger deal, but whatever. I'm not bitter about that for somebody else, but whatever. I can't really think of many athletes that I have been sure about as much as I'm sure about Jalen Hurts being worth every, not only penny of that contract, but the no trade clause attached to it as well. I'm amazed by this deal, and I don't think I've ever looked at an athlete and said, yes, absolutely, this guy, long-term deal, guaranteed money, no trade clause. Yes, I am buying 1,000% of the stock that the Eagles are selling and Jalen Hurts is selling in Jalen Hurts. Have you ever been more sure of an athlete than Jalen Hurts?
I mean, I don't know if I say I've probably at some point been more sure, but I think it's a no-brainer. I think Howie, once again, we got to stop just talking about Howie. The guy's going to get a big head. But, I mean, great move to sign Hurts. Hurts, the thing I love most about Hurts, obviously, like the on-the-field stuff, he can throw, he can run. He's just got such a unique skill set. But you look at the adversity this guy overcame. You look at last year at this time, the media out there, I mean, people were saying we're going to draft a new guy. We have this team set up. I don't think Jalen Hurts is the guy. I remember that. And I remember going to training camp and he's still catching grief. And I go, wow, this guy's incredible. I don't know what do people talk about. I'm hearing reports. This guy's not throwing the ball well. I go to a couple weeks of training camp. And I mean, obviously that was after watching the Bears, I'm like, wow, this guy is incredible. I mean, they're completely like, what are people talking about? So I think this was a no-brainer, but for the reason that Jalen Hurts is all football all the time. There's guys that, maybe they have other priorities. They like the fame. They like to party. Right. They like to do this and that. And Jalen Hurts is strictly a football player that wants to win. It's hard to find that in a young guy. So I think that's exactly why you got to stick with this dude. He's going to keep getting better. You can't affect him. What he went through last year in Philadelphia is as hard as any quarterback will ever have to go through something. I mean, that's difficult. And he went through it and came out as an MVP candidate and took the team to the Super Bowl. But what I love is the story saying like, hey, Hurts this guy just took less money. What are you talking about? He didn't care about the money. He just wanted to play. This guy, you're telling me a guy that just got paid $250 million. Oh, I don't care about money. You just got $250 million. You care about money. If it was all about winning, maybe you try to make ends meet and take $150 million and just, struggle for a little bit. Like, I don't know, maybe you only go down to $100 million and maybe you can't even pay your electric bill. But that whole storyline of, man, this guy just took so much less. Come on. He earned that money and that's a good value. But don't try to tell me that this guy took some crazy great deal for the team when you just paid him $250 million and most of that guaranteed. Like, come on. Obviously, we love Hurts, but we don't have to try to sell that.
Leave it to the NFL to invent something that has to clarify the word guaranteed. The NFL has guaranteed, and then what else do they have, Clay? They have fully guaranteed.
Oh, yeah.
He is fully guaranteed $110 million and 3 years. That's like fully guaranteed. Now, in the 3 years, there's going to be other guys that sign contracts. Already Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, probably Justin Fields as well. Your boy Justin Fields. And then what's going to happen after that 3 years? Renegotiation. That's where, we think this is a big deal. Oh, baby. The next one is going to be mega huge Kajunga, if this one wasn't already. Clay, always great catch. Oh, let me ask you about Justin Fields because, the portion where you're talking about going to Chicago's training camp, we won't send that to Chicago. That won't make its way to the interweb in Chicago.
Please, I'll get chased out of here.
How, as an NFC team, how aware of the Bears with Justin Fields should the Eagles be when it comes to potential playoff matchups?
I mean, it's a possible first-round matchup, but, I mean, the Bears, I think, in the division, obviously you get the Lions and the Vikings, the Packers, who knows with Jordan Love, how he's going to be. But he was in that same draft class with Jalen Hurts taken ahead of Jalen Hurts. And, who knows how he's going to be. But I think they could possibly be a first-round matchup. They could spring an upset, but, I mean, they're not even in the same stratosphere as the Eagles. I think they could possibly in the NFC North, because it's not a strong division right now, could possibly sneak in to the second spot, maybe get a wild card, possibly win, because I'm not sold on the Lions. I think the Lions had a good draft, a good offense last year. The Vikings, Kirk Cousins disappears in the playoffs. I mean, they got a solid team. The Packers without Aaron Rodgers couldn't make it with Aaron Rodgers last year to the playoffs. Now he's gone. You got Jordan Love's first year as a starter. You really didn't give him much help on the offensive end. At least you went Lucas Van Ness in the first round. They ended up getting Sam Laporta, and they got him a wide receiver as well. But I think the Bears could make the playoffs. But that D-line, you talk about the opposite of the Eagles D-line. Look at the Bears D-line. They had 20 sacks last year, and they didn't draft one edge rusher, not one. So I think just because of that huge hole in the D line, the Bears are still a year off from being a real contender.
Last thing I want to ask you, it goes back to the draft, but more from a player's perspective here, Clay.
Oh yeah.
How do you guys watch the draft? When you're with the Eagles, you're with the Jaguars, whatever. How are you guys watching the draft? Are you guys talking about it? Are you guys talking to the locker room? Are you guys working out together, being like, I hope we get this guy. If we get this guy, this is great. Meanwhile, the other guy in the room that already has that position is like, what the hell, guys? Like, what? How do you guys as players watch and follow the draft?
So it's simple. Honestly, for us, we all, as we think that we're good, and like obviously these guys are going to help us, but you just don't want the team to take someone in the first or second round of your position. Typically, I mean, if you're a guy, if you're a veteran that knows you're there in the team, which is only a few guys, you know, you don't really care either way. Okay, we drafted, you're a big time receiver. We drafted another receiver. Okay, that'll help. That's great. You know, we're going to work together now. As a guy that's a mid-level guy, if you're not the star player and they go first or second round, even third sometimes at your position, you start packing your bags. You go, okay, obviously they're going to keep this guy. They got plans for this guy. I'll tell you a quick story. My fourth year with the Birds, when Chip Kelly came in after Andy Reid got fired, you know, I was a number 2 tight end for 3 years with Brent Selleck. Mm-hmm. And, you know, without then the Eagles signed for agency James Casey. So we signed Casey. He's a guy that does a lot of similar things that I did. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I don't have a problem competing with this guy. They did pay him a lot of fully guaranteed money. But overall, you know, you watch the draft. First round, I think we drafted Lane Johnson that year. And then, you know, second round came along. And with the second round pick, the Philadelphia Eagles select Zach Ertz. And I'm like, all right, my time here in Philly has come to an end. There's no way they're keeping, you know, all of us that are similar type players. So at that point, you know, you kind of realize you're not in the cards, and it kind of gives you a, you know, a telltale sign. And then you go from there. So as a player, you kind of don't want them to draft a player at your position. You do want some help. Say if you need help on the O-line and you're a tight end, if you're an offensive lineman, you could use another position. But when it's exactly your position, that's what you don't want. And I've experienced that personally, obviously with the when Ertz got drafted here. And you know, it's basically just tells you, hey, your time here has come to an end.
I'm going to see Zach on Friday. I'll make sure he knows I'll see if his ears are ringing.
Yeah, we talked about him on the show. Yeah.
Clay, always great catching up with you, man. Seriously, you do a great job for NBC Sports in Chicago, for 33rd Team, all the things you're covering here, and also sports radio in Chicago. Yeah,
the score 670. Do a lot of work with them. I'll be hosting this Friday. We're talking Bears and ball. Obviously, in Philly, you don't care about the Bears, but if you want to get some insight, some insider info on one of your maybe competitors in Justin Fields, DJ Moore, you know, Chase Claypool down the road, tune in, check us out.
Did you guys shoot fireworks off in Chicago when Aaron Rodgers officially got traded to the Jets?
Oh man, you remember the Aaron Rodgers quote after that one game? I own you, Chicago. I still own you. He's finally gone. Finally, we can own our own team again in Chicago. So I was happy.
Clay Harper, make sure you guys are following him on all social media platforms, including Instagram as well. He's a great follow on Instagram, and also right here on Twitter as well at Clay Harbs82. Clay, great catching up with you, man. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it, Mark. Thanks for having me.